08717 223344. Let me first of all speak to Kevin, we'll call him, from Whitechapel. He was at the demo yesterday, the protest against the higher student fees. How are you, Kevin?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks.
Good. Now, you are a protester, by nature anyway, would that be fair?
Well, I guess not a protester by nature, but...
You protest against that? Do you protest against...
That's the kind of matter of circumstance, isn't it?
Do you protest against other stuff, or is it just student issues?
Well, obviously, I'm a member of the Whitechapel Anarchist Group, I'm an anarchist, and...
So what is an anarchist? Does that mean you just hate the Tories?
Not at all, no. Anarchism's a strand of political philosophy that seeks to find ways to live without a centralised state.
And you believe that to be a worthy ideology, and that's fine, but does that sit... Does your ideology sit within the student ideology, and does what happened yesterday in any way assist the case of the students? Because most people I spoke to, Kev, are pretty much against the students now. Some of those people were with them before.
Well, I think for a start, students are kind of demographically diverse body anyway. If you were there on a day, you'd see there were lots of kind of old, young people, male, female, big kind of mix of, different ethnicities, and obviously there are some students who are anarchists and lots of students who aren't anarchists. I mean, let's get one thing clear. Anarchists didn't organise events yesterday. It was students of whatever political persuasion organised events, and a lot of it seemed to be kind of fairly spontaneous.
But what
if I think that the students advanced their agenda, I think potentially yes.
What did smashing up the place achieve, though, yesterday? Other than most people thinking that any support we did have for these people has completely gone altogether.
Well, I would disagree that the support people had for the students is gone. There's been...
Well, I don't think there was much support to start with, really. We're only asking people to pay for their education, which is something that would have to happen under your anarchistic system anyway, isn't it? Because you wouldn't have a centralised body to administer.
I guess that's kind of making the assumption that the families that people come from haven't paid into the system themselves, or that people who get degrees and graduate won't contribute.
Some will.
Somehow afterwards. There's lots of working class students that are there as well. It's not all people from privileged backgrounds who are asking to be further privileged.
Well, and they will benefit more from this system than the previous one, won't they? Because they haven't got to pay back until they earn more money than they would have done before. In fact, if they never ever get a job all their life, they'd never have to pay it back.
Well, they're also eliminating maintenance grants, which for working class students obviously is a massive blow. But there's also the question of whether people should go into education and end up being saddled with huge debts afterwards. If you're talking about people from less privileged backgrounds, that's a massive barrier.
But it's not. It doesn't make any difference to your background, does it? In terms of paying this back, it makes no odds at all. It's not until you earn 21 grand.
Well, I think it does. If you come from a background where life can be pretty much a struggle anyway, maybe month to month, it's in the hardship of kind of paying bills, paying a mortgage or whatever, you don't necessarily do that and saddle yourself with another huge, whatever it's going to be, nearly 60,000, 70,000 debt.
But nobody would seriously believe that.
I think you were talking earlier on about the support people might have had for this. I mean, there isn't like a division, from my point of view, between workers and students. There's been ongoing discussions between students and organised groups of workers. It's students aren't just marching about education cuts. I mean, some of them are. And when workers are out on the street, they're not just marching about things that affect
I was there yesterday, Kevin, and it frankly looked to me like a lot of middle-class posh kids marching up and down the street, getting sort of doing that manufactured indignation thing that they do so well, pretending they're really racked up. I don't believe when Matey was smashing that pane of glass in, he was so annoyed about the student fees. It had got to such a level, he'd read about it, he couldn't sleep, he was frothing at the mouth, and suddenly, it wasn't about that at all, was it? It was a day out kick-off and cause some jip.
Yeah, but that's the kind of your supposition and your assumption.
No, but come on,
from viewing this guy, you know nothing about his background or his motivation.
Do you really believe whoever that person was? You might even know him. It might have been you, Kev. I don't know. But whoever that person was that's been featured on the front of the newspapers today, do you really believe that person felt so indignant about student fees that their anger sufficiently rewired the thinking in their brain to make them carry out an act of vandalism? The person that lobbed the fire extinguisher, they were so angry, so incensed by what was happening with the student policies that they felt they had to do that. My guess is
I think
that didn't happen.
that's like the proximate cause. That's the thing that has people out in the streets. But there's a lot of underlying tension in this country and within communities. And I think that's what you're seeing coming out, is the kind of, students are angry, obviously. They're
just being asked.
Students also come from families. They're also, members of communities that might be affected by wider cuts as well.
But it seemed to me that quite a lot of it was all about, it was an excuse for students to go back to kind of feeling that they had some worth in the protest department, going back almost to the 1980s. I mean, all the banners that I were looking at, very anti-Tory stuff, very personalised to Cameron, back to the old stereotypes that never stand up under scrutiny about greedy Tories and dirty Tories, and bring back Gordon Brown, one of them said. Kev, he was the man that introduced the student fees.
Well, I've got no interest in Gordon Brown or the last Labour government at all. But I think if you're talking about a return to the politics of the 80s, I hope it is a return to the politics of the 80s.
Well, what is the politics of the 80s? The politics of the 80s
I think it's good old-fashioned class anger, people being out on the streets taking direct action.
What is the... we had the poll tax thing, and I was one of those people that didn't pay it myself. I was the first person to be bailiffed in my town for that very reason. And, so, I had levels of...
Well, I hope people got together from the anti-poll tax union, came round your house and chased the bailiff up to your estate or from your road.
To be honest, I mean, I'd like to think that my one moment of protest there on that particular issue was what overturned the poll tax thing, and the Trafalgar Square riots meant nothing. It was all what happened at my house that day.
You and I know that's probably not true.
Oh, I'd like to think it is.
And the Trafalgar Square riots...
Come on, Kev, allow me my anarchist moment.
Which I was also present at.
Yeah.
Was a massive thing.
So what were you doing? What you did was... It didn't. No, it didn't. You smashed up the place. Everybody thought you were a bunch of idiots, and a policy that was going to be overturned anyway was overturned. Because it had no support within its own
party. There were over 300,000 people out in Trafalgar Square that day. When I got back to Gravesend, which was the town I was living in at the time, a working class industrial town on the Thames, people were loving it. There wasn't this kind of sense of revulsion that you get when you read the mainstream media. That's not.
I think you're looking at it through anarchist glasses, there, Kev. I mean, I think most people.
Well, I'm not talking about.
I'm not talking about Daily Mail glasses here either. I'm just talking about the fact that smashing up the square and beating up coppers and stuff is just not a very clever way. Because your point isn't really about poll tax or student fees. It's about trying to dismantle the system. You're anti-establishment, aren't you?
Well, I'm an anarchist, yes, I'm anti-establishment.
Well, why are you anti? What's all that about? It doesn't mean anything, really, does it?
Well, what do you mean it doesn't mean anything?
It's a way of not doing very much, just getting the hump about things.
But I think we're moving away from the motivation of the students yesterday, which is what you started it on. And they obviously have like a plethora.
But why were you there? Why were you there yesterday?
Well, I was there because up until recently I was a mature student. I left my job on the railway to go and study anthropology. I've got a son who's just starting to study now, not at degree level yet, but it's a course that he's got to pay his accommodation for, etc. And he's going to be hit by it in a few years as well. So I've got
so why do you think? Why do you think that?
Because I have a wider issue.
Well, my sister, who earns about $7,000 a year, why should she finance other people to go to university?
I don't think your sister should directly finance people to go to university. I think there's a lot of money swilling around. I'm sitting in my flat at the moment, looking at the city, all it up, and apparently making us billions and billions. And I think I can see where the money should come from to finance education.
So you think we just take it from rich people?
I wouldn't object to that, no.
Well,
we either do that, we massively reorganise society so that there isn't.
Well, it is reorganised, and we've realised that it can't be free, and universities have got to make a buck as well, and they're in competition, and no big offence going on in that respect. So once you start earning 21 grand,
isn't that a third argument where when banks have been bailed out to the tune of billions and billions of pounds?
Say that again.
And now we're saying we can't afford education, we can't afford. In a country that's...
But we're already financing education. Only this week that the government announced, I can scarcely believe there's another £7 billion to educate 2-year-olds in nurseries. The nasty Tories are trying to be nice to our babies now. Outrageous. Cheers, Kev. Thanks for coming on. Kev is from the Whitechapel Anarchist Group. Man alive. Wonder what goes on at their Christmas party. Welcome to the Whitechapel Anarchist Group Christmas party. Let's just smash the place up. Brilliant.